It's a Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, and Damichael Cole has dropped a phenomenal piece over at the Commercial Appeal after speaking with Desmond Bane. What does Bane think of Luke Kennard coming back? Why is he calling fans crazy or nuts for being so worried about the return of Luke Kennard, plus fits with Zach Edey and working out with Jaren Jackson Jr.? It's a fun episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole, the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the Memphis Grizzlies award-winning beat writer for that publication. I am a veteran of the podcasting and blogging game, covering this team for over a decade. Between the two of us, even in the dog days of the offseason, you have come to the right place here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube continues to be a great place for the show, Damichael, but let's keep building up our audio, right? Let's keep building up Apple and Spotify and Amazon. Take Damichael and I with you wherever you go, whether you're on the treadmill or at the gym, driving somewhere like to work or to run an errand, whatever the case
I know
be.
school's starting back in Memphis. So, happy
on your
first
way to
day.
school.
To everyone. Yeah. So, when you drop the kids off and you're stuck in that long line and you're just sitting there in that traffic, there you go.
Might as well let Damichael and Joe serenade your cerebellum, so to speak, and talk to you about Memphis Grizzlies basketball. And there's lots to discuss. Again, it is the slower part of our year. The episodes become a little bit more expanded, or a little bit more spread out is the better way to put that. We'll go to about 3 episodes a week, give or take, some breaking news, that sort of thing. But we'll go a Monday, Wednesday, Friday dropping in the month of August is the plan as of this moment. And we have a great episode here, Damichael, because again, I mentioned earlier your phenomenal piece. You covered Desmond Bane, and you and I were talking a little bit before the show got started. Desmond Bane's kind of like the forgotten star, right? Like John Morant absorbs so much energy. He's kind of like the sun in that way. Everything kind of revolves around him, Memphis Grizzlies wise. And we talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot because of his chance to play international basketball, his extension coming up that could be the $300 million variety. We talked about that last week. But Desmond Bane has signed his extension. Desmond Bane has not been suspended. There is no drama that surrounds him. He just kind of does his thing and is a pretty solid representative of what it means to be a Memphis Grizzly, and is also one of the best 30 or so players in the NBA, which is nice to see. And you had a chance to chat with him this past weekend at a great event.
Yeah, I did. And the thing that stands out to me about Desmond Bane is it's just a lot of drama there because he's business. He has a very business approach to the game, and quite frankly, everything is taking care of itself around him. You mentioned the contract. His game is very complimentary of Ja's, and we've seen him. I think everyone has confidence in him as a player to this point because of what he's done from a growth standpoint. Pretty much every year he's gotten better. Haven't seen a lot of him. Last season he was off the court, a lot because of the injuries and whatnot. And of course, the Grizzlies just struggled. And even the year before that, he played a decent part of the season, battling a foot injury after missing, a chunk of it as well. I think 20 or so games. So the last 2 seasons have kind of had some ups and downs, from a health standpoint. But when he's playing, Desmond Bane's look good. And he is looking like one of those players who can turn into a solid, borderline all-star. Like CJ McCollum has never made an all-star game, but he's been a guy who's averaged 20-plus points, on a lot of really good basketball teams. Desmond Bane can be that. He potentially can be an all-star. Some people may say he is an all-star. I look in the West right now, and that's another conversation. It's tough, but at the end of the day, he is the perfect player to put alongside of Ja and Jaren simply because he's not afraid to challenge them. And I don't think that should be overlooked because he is a guy. He'll look at Ja and say, "You need to do this." And now remember, there were times, when Jaren, I was asking guys in the locker room, a couple years ago, is Jaren starting to realize his potential? And of course, Dylan Brooks was one of the guys that said, no, not yet. And then there are the nicer guys, like a Tyus, who's a good leader as well. But Tyus was like, yeah, he's getting there. And Dez is like, nah, not yet. So from that standpoint, he brings a lot of things to the Grizzlies. But one of those things that he brings, Joe, is shooting. And, he also recently spoke about.
Yeah, it was an impressive piece that you wrote about Bane, and I loved his honesty. I thought it was really cool to see, and not just in this piece that you wrote and in the conversation you had, but also his overall demeanor. You can just kind of tell that he's speaking his truth. You may not always agree. But I thought it was interesting. He thought the fans panicked, and I'm quoting your post on X at Damichael. Yeah. If you guys don't already follow him there, you most certainly should follow Damichael there. Your post said, advertising the piece, Desmond Bane saw fans on X panicking before Luke Kennard resigned and just thought these fools. Now, why, again, people should subscribe to the commercial appeal and read the piece, but just a little bit of a taste. Why did you think the fans were acting foolish for being so concerned about Luke's return?
It's one of those situations where if you read the tea leaves, whether it was, Woj initially, when he first reported the team, option was being declined, but the Grizzlies and Luke would continue to talk.
Or listen to Locked On Grizzlies.
Yeah, if you listen to not just myself, we were saying it on it, and I was confidently saying it. It wasn't just me talking off the side of my neck. It was, it was confident. Hey, Luke Kennard's probably going to be back. Really good chance. And it wasn't just me. There were other beat writers as well who were adamantly saying that, hey, look. I mean, I think one of them, Chris Harrington, pretty much wrote like his offseason piece before Luke Kennard resigned with the assumption that Luke Kennard was going to be back on the roster. But that's how much confidence, people who I would say were in the know had in the situation. So if we knew things, you knew that Desmond Bane knew. So he basically was saying, Joe, that he had the inside scoop pretty much the entire time, which makes sense. The Grizzlies got their group chats and things like that. I'm sure Luke Kennard, being the guy that he is, probably was putting guys at ease, or knowing Dez, the competitor he is, he probably was reaching out like, hey, we don't have anything to worry about here, right? Like we're good. So when there's just one of those situations, and kind of being a beat writer, I see it sometimes from my perspective too, where there are certain things that I know that I tell people in confidence that, hey, I won't say anything about this yet, and whatever the case may be, but I'm pretty sure this was one of those things where Dez knew, and he's just looking at people like, why haven't we signed Luke Kennard back yet? What are we going to do? What's the holdup and all those things? And it's just, you're just looking at the post and you're just laughing and you're just like, look at them. They think the Grizzlies are incompetent right now whole time. They're in complete control of the situation. But yeah, I think that's pretty much how Dez viewed it. That's how everyone, looked at the situation of standpoint with Luke Kennard in-house. There was never any concern, about Luke Kennard and what would happen there. It will be good. I'm looking forward to catching up with him when we do before the golf tournament, because it'll be good to kind of get his perspective on just the timeline of everything. But other than that, there was never lost confidence in the idea that Luke Kennard would be back. And Desmond Bane comments pretty much confirmed that. He just basically said, look, he's scrolling and looking at everything everyone's saying. He's just shaking his head looking at it.
2 of the top 10 or so three-point shooters in the NBA play for the Memphis Grizzlies. And as you've alluded to time and again, and you're exactly right, partner, they need as much shooting as humanly possible. So to have both of those guys in the fold, it'll be interesting to see how they address the backup point guard position. That's something we'll talk about, I'm sure, a lot over these next couple of months. Desmond Bane, if the roster stays as it currently is, almost certainly factors into that, and playing alongside of a Luke Kennard could be a possibility in some rotation pieces. So I'm sure he's excited to have that spacing, to have a splash brother, so to speak. Now that Klay Thompson's no longer there in Golden State, I hope maybe we can steal that. Maybe the trademark is expired.
I don't know, Joe, because I remember when I first got back to Memphis, I told everyone, I was like, oh, the Grizzlies are giving me Lob City vibes, and everyone.
Oh, we were mad at you about that. That's true.
Yeah, I was like, I'm from Memphis. I know what I'm talking about here. Like, hey, geez, like back up off me a little bit. But
the truth hurts sometimes. The truth hurts.
I don't know if the Splash Brother one rolled off that well. If the Lob City thing didn't come off well, then I don't know if that one will. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I would like to think that we hated Lob City Clippers more than the Warriors, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe let us know in the comments who, and that might be a good topic for an episode, who the Grizzlies rival truly is. Maybe we have a little tournament or something to fill some content over the next couple of months. I think we might be onto something there, partner. And then one last thing before we move on. Desmond Bane, I just love how you reminded, now I am talking to Desmond Bane now. I love how you reminded us how online you are. We forget how online these Grizzlies are. I also know that you check out Locked On Grizzlies, and I would just like to say I've believed in you from the beginning, Desmond Bane. But you know that I've had your back arguing for you since TCU. We're on the same page, Des, you and me. So it's always nice to know that Desmond Bane is paying attention, and probably every once in a while checking in, almost certainly because of Damichael Cole and not because of the creepy old guy who talks about him the way that he does. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are going to dig deeper into Damichael's piece. Desmond Bane been working out with Jaren Jackson Jr. What does that look like? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die whip alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Things like superchargers, roof racks, all sorts of different pieces of a car, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are looking at an opportunity to burn rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die whip alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available for United States customers. When we return, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane working out. Exciting. Stick around. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax on this Monday episode of the show, joined by my wonderful co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He wrote a great article. If you haven't checked it out already, it's about Desmond Bane speaking on a variety of topics at his annual school supplies giveaway event. Damichael mentioned earlier in the program, today is the first day of school in Memphis. Shout out to Memphis. Shout out to the Bolton Wildcats. That's where I worked when I was in Memphis, Tennessee for a few years there, coaching football and teaching history. So shout out to Bolton and everybody that's getting started back with school in Memphis, Tennessee. I missed starting that early. That was one of my favorite parts about being in Memphis. Because August sucks. Like maybe that's
when do you start?
I start in a couple weeks. I start August 19th but I go back as a full teacher August 12th and like the work week or whatever. And, people complain about that because in Virginia, it used to be Labor Day. And I know we're getting off topic here. It used to be after Labor Day, we'd go back, and that's way too late. Like August just sucks. And that also means that you're going into the middle of June. And then I moved to Memphis and I was like, what do you mean I'm done in May? This is awesome, right? Like that's exactly what I wanted. So it's nice to see Virginia catching up with Tennessee. People like to call the South backwards. Well, actually, it's the northern states that are starting to catch up with how the South has been doing school for a while. But I digress.
That's your one. That's my one. There we go.
Shout out to 60 Ziller on YouTube. That's my one. We've been talking about Dez and how excited we are to have Bane as a leader in the organization, doing things in the community, talking about being back with Luke Kennard and how exciting it is. I'm excited by the idea of him working out with Jaren Jackson Jr. and seeing how Jaren is looking this summer. We talk at the end of seasons a lot, Damichael, about being excited that the team is healthy, right? Because that allows for them to not focus on rehab and they can actually grow their games. So what are some things that maybe Dez talked about in his own game that he's focusing on, maybe some things he saw from Jaren in any sessions they've been a part of as they work toward an eventual season starting here in a couple of months?
Yes, so with Jaren and Dez, the first thing here is Dez moved to Texas, and he bought I won't say moved. He bought a house in Texas. I think he still owns his one here as well. But that second contract's kicking in. You got a little more money in your pocket. But anyways, Desmond Bane has a home in Texas now, so he spent most of his time there. He's been in Texas more than he's been in Memphis. I know some people will recall the Mikal Bridges story. Mikal Bridges was actually at Desmond Bane's home when he found out he was being traded, from the Nets to the Knicks, and he was at his Texas home, not the one in Memphis. So with all that being said, Dez actually hasn't worked out with many of the Memphis guys, over the course of the summer to this point. But actually, this is the week that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to go down to Texas, actually, and work out with Desmond Bane there. So they're going to work out there this week, and that's going to be kind of the progression of that point. And it's not just because I know some people saw that and they were asking me like, "Oh, has John Morant been working out with Dez and things like that?" So on a bigger scale here, even more so than Dez and Jaren working out together, which is important, and we'll speak a little bit more on that. But the Grizzlies as a team, sometimes before the season, what they usually like to do is get together for informal hoop sessions. It was something that I mentioned last year before the season, and the way that I mentioned it was with Derrick Rose, because if you're familiar, like, with the inner workings of the NBA, like, there are certain guys in the league who do not do open gym 5-on-5 runs. Kawhi Leonard doesn't really do them. Derrick Rose is one of those guys. And there are some others, but, maintenance on the body, things like that. They don't do the whole 5-on-5 in the summer. Derrick Rose does not do it. But when he came to Memphis, the Grizzlies, players got together for some of those informal, formal hoop sessions, no coaches and things like that. And Derrick Rose participated, kind of, I guess, get the chemistry process going with his new teammates and learning their games as well as a point guard. So this summer, it's actually something they're planning to do again. And Dez said that they're hopeful at this point that I know he's going to go to a wedding. And him and Jaren are going to work out this upcoming week. And then after that, he's going to go out for a wedding. And then when he gets back, he's planning on coming back up to Memphis. And sometime probably late August, they want to get the team together, the entire Grizzlies team, to work on some of that chemistry and, build up some of that thing. I know we're going to talk about Zach Edey a little bit later in the show, but like this past weekend, the Terrence Crawford fight, Desmond Bane watched it with Zach Edey. Like, they're already building up, that chemistry and trying to work through those things. And Des, it wasn't just to watch the fight. As he told me, we're going to see what he's about a little bit. Like, Des is one of those cerebral guys. We're going to be watching the fight, but I'm going to learn about you as well throughout this process. So Des and Jaren working out together, that's peanut butter and it's them just fine tuning their games. It's always funny to me when, guys point out that Jaren does a lot of the same drills, as the guards and stuff like that. So Dez and Jaren working out together won't be as simple as, hey, he's over here doing big man drills, he's over here doing guard drills, and they're playing together against other people. Like, no, like Jaren is going to be doing the same in and out, combo drills that lead to jump shots as Dez. So those two, it's going to be pretty much, the old saying, iron sharpening iron. But on a bigger scale, Joe, it's got to be encouraging to fans to know that this team, which faced a lot of injuries last season, plan on getting the entire core group together in late August, maybe even early September, but before preseason camp opens.
That matters so much. It really does. The building of chemistry. We'll talk more about Edey here in a moment. Did somebody ask a follow-up question about what they ate if he had him over for the Crawford fight? Like, this dude, it's becoming legendary. Like, how do you feed Zach Edey? You invite him over to watch the fight. Are you ordering like 50 wings for him alone and then 50 wings for somebody else? How does that work? Are you?
I don't know. He's a rook. They probably tell him bring his own food at this point.
Is it bringing catered by the barbecue shop? Like, is the barbecue shop just going to pull up and just hang out? Like, just have a truck for Edey out there? I'm excited to see how this. Because, again, we're assuming Jaren will sign a max contract with the Memphis Grizzlies when extension time comes. That'll be 3 dudes all on extensions that are max contracts. You don't see that as much right now, right, in the current structure of the NBA with the new deal, with the new cap stuff, aprons and all that. You hear people say you want 2 max guys and then you build money around it. Well, Memphis almost certainly isn't going to be that way, right? Memphis is going to have 3 max guys and kind of have to figure it out beyond that. How that, is it going to be a triumvirate of leadership? Is it going to be Ja Morant's team? Do we see a Ja Morant that is more subdued? I doubt this, but do we see a Ja that, kind of defers to Dez and Jaren? He's tried, but Dez and Jaren haven't let him do it, right? Like, we talked about that at the end of the New Orleans game. Like, he wanted to be a decoy, and they were like, hell no, you're not going to be a decoy. Like, you're shooting this basketball. So it's going to be fascinating to me because Memphis is a unique market to begin with. If the Grizzlies become one of those teams that says we've got 3 guys and this is who we're riding with, how that evolves in the years to come is going to be really interesting to me. But let Damichael and I know how you're feeling about the team getting together, working out, Jaren doing guard drills. I'm sure that'll have a lot of fun online comments. Hit us up and let us know in the comments below. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to finish out this episode. We mentioned Zach Edey a moment ago, how Bane sees him fitting in. Maybe we get an update on what kind of barbecue Zach Edey eats, that sort of thing. The importance of building that chemistry coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But speaking of chemistry, thank you for making our podcast, Locked On Grizzlies, your first listen of the day. For your second listen, you have to go check out the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA, really, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed or entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Again, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. I know, Damichael, you're very excited about your Atlanta Braves. They seem to be on a bit of a hot streak coming out of the All-Star break. Yeah. They're hot right now, and if you have a chance over the next few weeks before NBA gets back going, I wouldn't be surprised if you tried to make a trip to Atlanta to go see a Braves game. Hopefully, you're going to be making those memories while using the Game Time app. It's not just for Major League Baseball, of course. You can use the Game Time app for other major events, but we're talking about MLB right now, and that's one of the best ways to get into the ball game. You can get priority deals with last-minute prices, saving up to 60%, buying for a game, buying for a theater event, a comedy show, whatever the case might be. They have zone deals where you save even more money by choosing a section to sit in as opposed to actual seats. You get all-in pricing. We're toggling that feature, allows for you to see the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. My personal favorite, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, closing out the show about fits with Zach Edey and Desmond Bane on the Grizzlies. Stick around. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Make sure you're following him on X if you don't already do so, at Damichael C. Follow me on X at Joe Mullinax. We're talking Desmond Bane on this episode, and we'll close it out with this partner. He mentioned Zach Edey seeing the Crawford fight together. What are some other ideas that Bane shared about Edey fitting in with this iteration of the Memphis Grizzlies?
I'll start here. There was one thing that he said, and he brought up a name, very popular name to the Memphis community, and that's Steven Adams, unprovokingly.
Shout out to Steve-O.
Yeah, I didn't say, hey, compare the two guys or anything like that. Brought up Steven Adams unprovoked. And I'm going to say the quote and, take away what you will from the quote. And he was talking about Edey's fit in Memphis. He said, I think it's going to be a good fit. He said, obviously, we lost Steve-O. And then he says, he, as in Zach Edey, he replaces a lot of things we lost with him and then some. That's what he said. He said he replaces a lot of things that we lost with him and then some.
Now, he's almost certainly referencing the offensive game, right? He's almost certainly referencing the fact that Edey, Steven Adams had a successful college career. I believe he played at Pittsburgh. Yep. And he had a better back-to-the-basket game there, but no one would ever have, mistaken him for Hakeem Olajuwon. Whereas Zach Edey has been the most dominant player in college basketball the last couple of years, in large part because he has a pretty extensive offensive game beyond just being a screen setter.
Exactly. It's really that simple. And that's where the and then some comes in. I don't think it's not him saying that, he's a better player or anything like that. It's more so saying, I think he's just simply saying he has a bigger skill set, a bigger bag, if you will. Like you just said, the post games. I think that's going to be one of the biggest differentiators, like we talked about in the past, where I've seen teams, be able to go small, to a lesser degree when Steven Adams is in the game. But Steven Adams, he would punish them on the glass, but he wouldn't punish them with scoring enough that would make teams go grab that big off the bench. So that's kind of one big difference that really stands out to me. That Desmond Bane, count him in as one of those guys that's excited. And Joe, I want to add this too, because we talk about what he does for Jaren, right? Defensively, Jaren going to the floor, being able to kind of, roam around a little bit more and be that player from 2 years ago that won Defensive Player of the Year. We keep talking about that. We talk about, man, the 1-5 pick and roll with Zach Edey and John Morant. What about Desmond Bane coming off that pin down and that big body, separates that wing defender and Desmond Bane gets we talk so much about flybys. He probably don't even have to worry about flybys. When you got Zach Edey setting that screen, you can just sit there, set your feet, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, and knock down an open shot. So that's kind of a part that I'm looking forward to seeing, because when we talk about the 1-5 pick and roll with John Morant, because we know Ja's game at this point. We're not talking about Ja coming off the screens, just to knock down open 3-pointers. We can talk about that with Dez. We can talk about Dez using that extra space and coming off that, which he does. Like, this is part of his game. If you watch Dez play, he will come off of a screen. He likes that one dribble, get to one dribble to the mid-range shot, or he'll come off the screen and shoot the 3-pointer. Having a guy like in the past, he had Steven Adams. If you remember, and the one difference I will say is Steven Adams and Desmond Bane had exceptional chemistry. I do not see Zach Edey and Desmond Bane kind of replicating that in year one, maybe a couple years, or maybe after All-Star break or something like that. But I'd be hard pressed to see. I mean, the way that Steven Adams would find Desmond Bane on the back cuts, and Desmond Bane runs off of a screen, and they're expecting him to run to the 3-point line, and he back cuts, and Steven Adams just knew exactly where he'd be every single time. That's next level. That's the veteran helping out the younger player in Desmond Bane. Now it's going to be reversed a little bit, but at the same time, a lot of those things that Steven Adams used to do, Zach Edey is good at, and I see him the biggest beneficiary, benefiting the most from those screens in terms of those screens turning into open 3-point shots. And let's not discount the fact that Desmond Bane as a playmaker the last 2 years has been much improved.
The flyby aspect is going to be bodies from opposing defenders flying by Desmond Bane after bouncing off of Zach Edey. The biggest change between Edey and Adams, we've talked a little bit about this, is going to be the passing, right? Because Adams is just a better passer. You can watch Edey in college. That wasn't a focus of his game because they didn't want him to pass, right? The only time they wanted him to pass was if he was essentially being triple teamed because he was so big and had such good hands, good soft touch. I envision that version of Zach Edey being allowed to eat 4 to 6 minutes a game if he's playing alongside 3 other bench players or something like that, where he is the second best offensive option. They'll probably give him some opportunities to do that. But other than that, he's going to do a lot of the same things that Steven Adams did, and he's going to have to be a better passer. He's going to have to be able to find his footing in that way. His experience in college and his age, that's a positive in that area. I think he'll learn those things a little bit faster than somebody that hasn't competed at the levels of college basketball like Zach Edey has, and for as consistently long as Edey has done so. So I'm with you. I think that the Edey, if you're going to wax nostalgic about what the Adams and Bane pairing looked like, and I think that's fair. I would argue, Jaren maybe would disagree defensively, but I think Bane and Adams were a better match than John Adams, to be honest with you, because it was reciprocal. It was a symbiotic relationship. I'm not sure how much Ja helped Adams, because there wasn't a ton of back and forth, give and go kind of passing. It was more, I'm going to set a massive screen for you, and it helped the entire offense, whereas Adams was able to feed Bane specifically. And that's an interesting kind of way of looking at it. I thought that was a really symbiotic relationship offensively. How that will translate with this new, bigger Steven Adams 2.0, basically, it remains to be seen. But I'm looking forward to checking it out in the weeks and months to come. Thank you guys so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. As we mentioned earlier in the show, we are now in our off-season portion of our scheduling. So barring some major news story, a trade, something along those lines, we're going to drop episodes in the month of August on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today is obviously Monday, which means our next episode likely will be Wednesday. Damichael, lots of things we can touch on, the rivalry aspect. We talked a little bit about that already from a Grizzlies duo perspective. Maybe we try to put together a social media voting process. Who is the biggest rival of the Memphis Grizzlies going into this season? There might be something to that.
Yeah, very well. That could be something that we touch on. You still got the Olympics going on as well. I know Santi, it's not in it no longer, but a lot of interesting storylines. That's one I like. That rivalry one is definitely something we could definitely touch on as well. If the Grizzlies were to win the championship, would they be the world champions, Joe? Shout out to Noah Lyles. Let me talk about Noah Lyles for a couple seconds here. I'm a big Olympics guy. Most people know that by this point, but I'm not gonna give it the whole world champion talk, but I just don't like the whole divisiveness between, like people in the NBA community wanting him to lose. And even last year when Team USA lost in the FIBA World Cup, like flipping it back on Noah Lyles, and he was liking posts when people were like, "Oh, Noah Lyles was right. Noah Lyles was right." Like kind of, like he was embracing the downfall of Team USA basketball. I don't like all this divisive stuff. But anyways, shout out to Noah Lyles on winning the Olympic gold medal in the 100-meter race. And now hopefully Team USA basketball can follow that up.
I think I'm uniquely suited to address that as a coach of one of the sports that isn't represented in the Olympics because there is no real global competition. When the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, yes, I can confidently say they are the world champions of American football. If you make me put the American in front of it, I'm going to acknowledge that our team that won the title is going to be the best one. But basketball is different in that way. We talked about how it's becoming more of a global game. I do think there's something to that. I like that idea. We'll touch on that on our Wednesday show. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Make Damichael and I a part of your audio and visual NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption. You've checked out Locked On Grizzlies. Now go check out Locked On NBA. Make that your second listen. No offseason in the NBA. Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national, local experts in 30 minutes or less. Again, go check it out. Available on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Locked On NBA is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, just like we are here at Locked On Grizzlies. We'll catch you back here on Wednesday. Until then, he's Damichael. I'm Joe. Stay locked in. Shout out to Desmond Bane, a great representative of the city of Memphis and their Grizzlies. I'm excited to watch him play, and I'm excited to talk to you guys again on Wednesday. See ya.